Okay, hi, welcome back to another Mr. Men extravaganza. Today I'm reading one of my favourite Mr. Men. I remember when I was at school, World Book Day, I dressed up as this character, and it is Mr. Bump. Okay, Mr. Bump goes on holiday. Okay, so let's find out where he's going. Mr. Bump was going on holiday via France. How very lucky! It was time for Mr. Bump to get out of bed because he'd got so much to do, and he had to have a shower, eat his breakfast and pack his suitcase. There was no time to lose. He'd had to beat all those extra restrictions at the airport. Mr. Bump jumped out of bed and... oh, I wonder what is going to happen here to start his day. Ooh! Mr. Bump had wanted to be quick, but this was ridiculous. He sped across the bedroom, out the door, down the corridor, and... splash! Bump! Landed right in the shower, knocking the cold tap as he went. Brrr! This was not a good start to the day, but perhaps a nice breakfast would make all the difference. Does for me, that's for sure. And there he is, in the shower, under the cold water. Down in the kitchen, Mr. Bump started making toast. But, what was that smell? A burning smell. Oh no, Mr. Bump had burnt his toast. But before he had time to make any more toast, he heard a ring at the door. Who could be visiting Mr. Bump so early in the morning? Mr. Bump ran to open the door and crash! A flower pot fell off the upstairs windowsill and onto his head. Gosh, he's not having a good start to the morning. Mr. Bump rubbed his sore head and looked up to see little Miss Busy standing there. "I've come to bring you a little present before you go on holiday," she explained. "I knitted it myself. I do hope it'll bring you good luck, Mr. Bump." "Many thanks," replied Mr. Bump. "I'll use it on the beach to protect me from the hot sun. Now I must rush and pack my suitcase." Hum-de-hum-de-hum, sang Mr. Bump to himself happily as he climbed the stairs. Do you notice a little problem? Have a look carefully at this picture here. Did you spot it? Mr. Bump tripped over a loose thread from the scarf and bump, 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 bump. Mr. Bump isn't called Bump for nothing, you know. He tumbled down the stairs and landed in a dizzy heap at the bottom. "Oh, I really must hurry," he said to himself. "I don't want to miss my train." Mr. Bump ran as fast as he could, but he missed the bus that was going to the station. "Oh, what shall I do now?" he said to himself. "I really don't have any luck at all." But then, cheering up, he said, "Well, I may not have any luck, but I do have lots of ideas." And with that, he stood by the side of the road, waving at the passing cars in the hope that a friend would drive by and give him a lift. And there he is, running as fast as he could for the bus. And for the first time that day, Mr. Bump had some luck. Mr. Forgetful was driving by, and he saw Mr. Bump waving and stopped his car. "Hello," he said. "I'm sure I know you. It's It's Mr. Bump, Mr. Forgetful," said Mr. Bump, smiling. "And who's this Mr. Forgetful you mentioned?" asked Mr. Forgetful. "Why, that's you," laughed Mr. Bump. "Would you be able to drive me to the station, please?" "Most certainly, Mr. said Mr. Forgetful. And there he is, with Mr. Forgetful on the car there. Mr. Forgetful set off, backwards, and drove backwards all the way to the airport. "But I needed to go to the station," said Mr. Bump. But it was too late. Mr. Forgetful had already driven away. And that is a very colourful plane if ever I saw one. Mr. Bump walked into the airport to see if anyone there could get into the station. But, whoops! He fell onto the conveyor belt right in the middle of all the suitcases and packages. What an unlucky day. He's starting to lose his bandages there as well. It wasn't long before Mr. Bump found himself inside the luggage compartment of the plane. Not the most comfortable seat on the plane. There he is, in a very small little compartment at the back. Do you recognise this happy traveller relaxing on a tropical island? A tropical island covered in coconut trees. Yes, of course. It's none other than Mr. Bump. And now that he'd finally completed his 2-week quarantine period, what could possibly go wrong? Bump. That'll be a coconut on Mr. Bump's head. And that was the end of Mr. Bump. I hope he had a good rest of his holiday. Okay, so that's our third Mr. Men book. Okay, and we'll see what's coming up tomorrow. Take care, see you soon.